Big news dropping over the weekend. We got an extended maintenance this week. Tons of class updates. I mean, tons of buffs that I wasn't even expecting. Also, the patch 12.0.7 looks like it got delayed over the weekend. Believe it or not, Blizzard taking a stance. They're deciding to get it right rather than get it out. Let's go ahead and jump straight in. Here we go. Oh, watching the news? No, you're watching me talk about something real important here. I'm a man of the people. People know me by that term. How do I hold the energy that I do every day to help the people out? It's G Fuel, guys. Right now, I'm drinking Gohan's Blackberry Tea. Fantastic flavors, good stuff, zero sugar, full of energy, a good way to game and to play at your highest level the way I do every day. You can use code Samiccus at checkout to get your favorite G Fuel up to 30% off. Try it now. 4-hour maintenance scheduled for May 26th. This maintenance period is going to be pretty extended for a little bit here, double the time as usual, and looks like there's good reason for it, actually. Tons of changes coming in with this maintenance period, so let's dive straight into some of this stuff that's going down here. First of all, a few fixes here, nothing too giant here. We got Unholy Death Knights resolving an issue where Forbidden Ritual aura remains permanently on the Death Knight. Also for Restoration Druids, reducing the number of sounds and visuals that play when using Talent Flourish and Tranquility. And then finally here for Disciplined Priests, Master of Darkness can now be tracked on the cooldown manager. This is all fine and well, and when I read this, I was like, oh, this is why they extended the maintenance? And then I read further, and I was like, oh my god. There's a shit ton of class changes coming in today, and I mean big class buffs for a lot of classes across the board. So let's jump straight in and talk about some of these changes here. First of all, Demon Hunter, Eldrachi Reaver. I guess bunch of these changes, Eldrachi was behind. Blizzard at least thinks that they were not performing as they wanted them to. So here we go, some changes coming with Eldrachi. We have Havoc, Eldrachi Demon Hunter. I guess for overall Havoc Demon Hunter, we have Death Sweep damage increased by 10%. And then for Eldrachi, we have Reaver's Glaive damage increased by 15%, Warblade Hunger damage increased by 55%, and then Warbound Quarry now deals 30% of physical damage on the target, was 25%. So there you go with that one. Then we have Vengeance Demon Hunter for Eldrachi again. Reaver's Glaive damage increased by 30%, Warblade damage increased by 55%. And then Wounded Quarry again now deals 25%. Physical damage on your target, was 20 for Vengeance. So these are some pretty big buffs for Eldrachi sucks, so it sounds like from chat here that it did need these buffs for sure. We'll see if it actually becomes playable. Sometimes they put these changes in and it still doesn't bring it up to what it needs to be, but big changes for Eldrachi there. For Feral Druid, just an overall damage increase of 4% across the board. Little kitty cats running around. Going to be a little bit more buffed, so that's good for all you little pussies playing this game. Arcane Mage, developer notes here, in addition to an overall damage buff, we'd like to get Sun Fury damage closer to Spellbringers. So here we go. All damage increased by 5% for Arcane Mage. Arcane Missile damage increased by 10%, and then Sun Fury Burden of Power, Arcane Blast damage bonus increased to 30%, was 25%, and then Arcane Pulse damage increased to 20%, was 15%. So there you go, some nice buffs for Arcane Mage. Fire also getting some love here. Overall Pyroblast damage increased by 8%, and Frostfire Bolt damage increased by 5%. So, I mean, right now we know Frost is carrying the day with Mage. The other two specs have been reeled down at the bottom when we look at the charts, so definitely Arcane and Fire needing some love and getting some here. Frost also getting some changes, though. What is this here? Frostfire Bolt damage increased by 5%. Pyroblast increased by, for Frostfire, this is Frostfire specifically, that hero talent. Pyroblast increased by 5%. Shatter damage bonus increased by 40%, was 15%. Flurry damage bonus increased to 25%, was 10%. And then Comet Storm damage bonus increased to 50%, was 20%. So Frostfire of the Frost Tree getting some buffs actually too. So even Frost getting a little bit of love here as we move on from these changes. So good stuff for mages, looking pretty good out of this. Retribution Paladin getting some love here. Let's see, Herald of the Sun, as Blizzard puts it, is a bit behind Templar in overall throughput. To improve its output, we're extending its effective damage window by granting an additional Dawnlight charge. We're also aiming to further improve its AoE performance by increasing the duration extension provided by Divine Storm. So the way they're going to do this, they say Wake of the Ashes is now increased and increase the next 3 holy power spending abilities to apply Dawnlight, was 2, so now you get 3. And then Endless Gleam now extends Dawnlight duration by 0.5 seconds with a Divine Storm. With the Divine Storm strikes at least 2 Dawnlights was 0.3. So they're making the window longer. Kind of goes with the notes here that we read earlier. So Retribution getting a little bit of love, which is good. Retribution actually has been squeaking its way into some meta runs a little bit lately. So Ret getting a little bit of buffs here. Maybe they start to actually become part of the meta again. For Priest, we see Holy. Flash heal damage, mana cost reduced by 8%. Benedict mana cost reduced by 8%. Prayer of Mending mana cost reduced by 8%. And Prayer of Healing has been reduced by 8%. So what is it? Were you guys having mana issues? Any holy priests out there in the chat today? Looks like you guys are having mana issues. At least that's what Blizzard believes in their notes here. They believe they had to reduce mana costs for a couple spells for holy priests. So I guess some of your mana issues will be fixed a little bit there. Yes, so much thirst. Yeah, I guess they were pretty thirsty. Sam, you could tell we didn't pre-read this. Has no clue what he's saying out loud. There you go, Doc. Again, proof that I don't pre-read or pre-watch. Thank you for finally putting in a comment that's worthy. Ass Rogue and Sub Titty Rogue getting some love here. Let's see what's going on here. At least for Deathstalker. Blizzard believes Deathstalker damage is below the hero talent options for most content and damage profiles, especially for assassination and to at least the degree for sub-titty rogues and for single target throughput. Changes are targeted at improving Deathstalker's total performance compared to each specialization alternative. So for Deathstalker here, we see Deathstalker's mark damage increased by 30%. Clear the Witnesses now increases Fan of Knives damage by 60%, was 40. Hunt Them Down damage increased by 25%. Corrupt the Blood now increases Rupture damage by 20%, was 10%. And then Darkest Night effect now increases Envenom by 35%, was 30. So some nice buffs there. And then Sub Titties, those nice good old plump Sub Titties for Deathstalker. Their mark damage now increased by 30%, and Clear the Witness now increases Shuriken Storm damage by 60%, was 40. So some nice buffs there. We'll see if this actually makes Deathstalker viable. As I said, sometimes they do these buffs and it absolutely does shit. Yeah, milk them sub-titties. That's right. We'll see if they're actually milk-worthy after these changes. We're almost through it here. A Shaman, Elemental, Farseer, Ancestral Spirits from the Farseer hero talent tree now benefit from the critical damage increase of Elemental Fury talents. So I guess that's a buff for them. They're benefiting from that change. And then Restoration. Developer notes here. We're adjusting the mana cost of some of the restoration spells. Basic spell casts giving them more room to spend mana on things like Chain Heal, particularly in raid settings. So they have a mana cost reduction of Chain Heal, Healing Wave, and Riptide. All have been reduced by 5% in terms of their mana costs. So I had no idea these healers were all struggling with mana issues. But it looks like at least Holy Priests and Resto Shamans were, so that should be a little bit better. What's up, Punstar? And then finally, here we got Warrior. Developer notes. These changes aim to improve Colossus performance in single target and Mountain Thane performance in AoE relative to the other hero talents. So for arms, we have a Colossus Practiced Strikes change. Mortal Strike and Slam damage increased by 25%, was 15. And this change does not apply to PvP. Then we see for Fury, Mountain Thane Thunder Blast damage increased by 30%. And then Protection, Colossus Practice Strike, Shield Slam damage increased by 25%, was 15. And Mountain Thane Thunder Blast damage increased by 30%. So some nice buffs there for Warrior. All three, Arms, Fury, and Protection, seeing changes to Colossus and Mountain Thane. So that's pretty good for them. Hopefully they're hitting a little bit harder. I feel like Warrior's making its way out. They're getting better throughout these patch cycles here. So all of these changes going live with this week's reset, some pretty big stuff. I'll have these patch notes linked down below as well and in the chat if you guys actually want to go check them out. Moving on to some interesting stuff here, guys. 12.0.7. We know that the release date for this thing was supposed to be June 16th. Blizzard hadn't officially announced that yet, but the 8-week cadence and the Turbulent Time Waste start date was June 16th. That was kind of lining up perfectly, as we've been seeing. We got 8-week patch lengths, and then the Turbulent Time Waste on the PTR was already marked to start on June 16th. So everyone was like, all right, we got a patch day release, even though Blizzard hasn't said it yet. Well, over the weekend, the PTR changed, boys, and it looks like Blizzard has delayed the Turbulent Timeways event until June 30th. Now, this could still mean we're still getting the patch on the 16th, but then there's a 2-week delay until the 30th. Maybe not, though. This could also mean that Blizzard's taking a little bit of retroactive look on themselves. Maybe they're having a come to green Jesus moment where they've decided, hey, maybe delaying the patch and not releasing it in a broken state might be the better option for once. So 2 weeks delayed, we could not be getting 12.0.7 until the 30th. I think most players, if you took just a random sampling vote at this point, they would say release the patch later without breaks in it and we'll be fine. I don't think anybody right now is starving for 12.0.7 to come out on the 16th. I think we'd all be fine with a little bit of delay if it meant that the patch is actually going to release in a proper playable state. Yeah, 2 weeks is fine. I totally agree. I think I'm not in a rush. I don't know about anyone else. I've got content to do still right now. I'm perfectly fine with the state of the game. I'm fine with this a 2-week delay. Like I said, if it means that this shit's actually going to play better when it actually releases. So we'll see. Hey, maybe it's delayed and it's still broken. I don't know. But this seems like a little bit of a delay here. We'll see if Blizzard actually finally breaks away from the 8-week patch cadence and we actually get a better release or a more smooth release for this stuff. Don't worry. You got Lura for months, not just weeks. That's true. Yeah, Lura progression, that's a tough one, definitely. With 12.0.7, we're going to talk about some of the stuff that recently dropped that we're going to start getting with this stuff. Right now, we found out that a bunch of buffs coming to questing in terms of buffs to XP. So leveling up alts is going to be extremely easy. We're seeing up to 8 times buffs on XP. Let's talk about some of the buffs here. Delver's Call, we're seeing almost a 2% buff, or a 2x buff on the amount of XP you get from doing the Delver's Call quest the first time. For dungeon quests in general, a 2.29x increase. Prey Hunt system. Now, this is a big one here. For the Prey system, in general, you could level up your alts through the system 5.72%, 5.72x increase. So we're talking about almost a 6 times increase on that shit. And then weekly renown, 8.6 times increase. That's a freaking massive increase. This thing moving up from just 11,750 XP to 101,000 XP. So yeah, basically doing Prey and weekly renown quests like the Abundance, Legends of Haranir, Storm Arian Assault, and Dragonflight Time Walk and shit. This is gonna be crazy. Crazy amounts of XP getting from this. So I mean, yeah, this is gonna feel like between the time walking event and these XP increases, it's gonna feel almost like a what do we call them? Time running event, not time running, remix event. Remix leveling style shit going down here. People are going to be flying through their levels. So, yeah, this is going to be good for anyone who wants to level up alts through 12.0.7. Also, a really cool toy coming out with this thing, Ashen Horn of the Fallen Keeper. So we're getting a bunch of new toys and pets and, you know, mounts and transmog because we're getting Dragonflight Time Walking coming in. This one's really cool. If you miss the days of Deathwing flying around and turning the sky to ash, well, you'll be able to do it with this toy, at least for 10 minutes. The Ashen Horn of the Fallen Keeper actually turns the skybox into a complete flaming scorched sky. Look at this thing with ashes falling through the air and everything. This thing has a 30-minute cooldown, and it's up for 10 minutes when you actually use it, but pretty cool looking skybox here for anyone who wants to do it. There's always one thing that comes out with these skybox changes, and sometimes they help with like mechanics in some way and some random boss fight or something. This one maybe less so, as it only has like a 10-minute upkeep effect, but pretty cool stuff. This is the brand new Silvermoon skybox. Look at this, how it changes from your regular looking skybox to this flamed out version. Pretty cool stuff. I always think these like skybox effect toys are neat. So this is just one of many things coming in the new Dragonflight Time Walking event. We're also seeing a change up in the Quartermaster in Silvermoon for how you can get some gear. So look at this, guys. Right now, if you go to, what's her name again? She takes field accolades, Marin Silverwing. So right now you can buy the random chest, right, that allows you to potentially get a heroic item for any random slot using your field accolades. Well, Blizzard's updating this in 12.0.7. You will be able to purchase one of these treasure chests for any specific slot. That's right. So you need a heroic helm, or maybe you're still rocking a belt that's not hero item level yet. You'll be able to buy the belt box in particular. Now, you don't know which belt you're going to get still, but you will be able to buy the belt box and get a heroic belt slot item. So that's pretty good. These are going to cost you a 500 accolades, is it? Or 750 for the specific slots, each of them. Now, these field accolades, I mean, you'll be able to get them so much quicker now, too. There's plenty of ways to get them now. But you also have the Heroic World tier, which recently saw a big buff in the amount of field accolades and other items that you get from this stuff. So if you want to go farm field accolades, you could start doing it right now. Or you could just wait until the heroic version of World tier and all that shit comes out. I think a lot of people have plenty of these. And yeah, if you want to buy a specific slot item for anything, remember these loot boxes are tradable too. They're all warbound, so you can actually trade this shit to your other alts and stuff and level those guys up real quick. So good to see here. Nice little change up. I just kind of, sometimes I wish they just put the specific gear you could buy, but this works too. At least better than just anything random. Also coming with Dragonflight Time Walking, a bunch of mount things here. We've seen a couple of these now. These are different skins and customizations for your Dragonflight mounts with Dragonflight Time Walking coming out. We see the Cliffside Wild Drake with these sleek horns. We also see the gold and pink armor here on the Flourishing Wimp Drake. Finally here, yellow scales on your Grotto Netherwing Drake, and then purple and silver armor also on your Grotto Netherwing Drake. All these things will be purchasable from Zydan, the badass looking freaking draconic guy that we should have freaking had as a customization option for Drakthir, but we never did. We'll never get to be Dracodid, very sad. But yeah, cool looking shit. And then finally, just a little tidbit here for all you classic Andes out there. You might be getting one of the cooler mounts in the game. That's right. Nobody knows what's coming next. Is it going to be Warlords of Draenor Classic? Or are we going to get a Wrath of the Lich King Anniversary Classic Andy Edition? Nobody really knows yet, but we might be getting a hint that it could be Wrath of the Lich King with this mount that was recently data mined. That's right, badass looking mount. The Juvenile Frostworm. Nobody really knows how we're going to get this thing yet, what it's related to, but yeah, this was a mount that was put on the PTR. Or at least put on the test servers, internal test servers for Blizzard. A freaking gorgeous looking mount. Badass. I would do some kind of event if it meant I can get this at retail, for sure. If this is just like a classic Andy mount, yeah, probably not. But definitely a cool looking mount. We'll see what comes next for all the classic Andys out there. Definitely a Classic Plus just around the corner, being announced at BlizzCon. We'll see if that's what this is about. Maybe. Interesting mount indeed, yeah. And for now, 12.0.7, hey, delays, bunch of class buffs and everything else. We'll see what else comes down the line. But for today, that is all in terms of news.